We are now streaming live. I don't know. I always have to prompt it. It says streaming live, and then I always have to read it. So
Yeah.
anyway, hi everybody at the Elephant and Castle community. I'm Nick from Retribe, and joining me today is Kelsey Davis, who is an owner of a hairdresser and beauty and well-being salon, I suppose. Is that the way you would call it? But
Yeah.
who's going to introduce yourself to everybody and let everyone know you know? But first of all, Kelsey, just thank you ever so much for joining me and adjusting your schedule, because I know you're very, very busy, but adjusting your schedule so that you could fit us in today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, really well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. It's been a crazy week because I'm dog sitting for my business partner.
Oh,
And then also my partner has three children, and we had the weekend of going out and doing a little Easter egg hunt, and then but also so I'm learning what it's like to help out with kids, but also the demand of looking after a dog full time is it's
what's harder,
hard.
to juggle with children?
The dog is harder because it's, like, bless her, I love her so much. She's just sitting down. I'll show you. She's just sitting down here. um,
Oh,
and I just love her so much, and she's a rescue. So I'm very conscious of the fact that she really misses Melissa, um,
oh,
because they have this real bond. So I feel like I always need to pay attention or walk her and make sure she's good. But anyway,
yeah.
I'm super tired,
Oh,
and
trust me, I know
yeah,
the feeling.
yeah. Well, we can get into how tired we feel as we go along over the next
Yeah,
45 minutes. But can you introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do?
yeah. So I'm Kelsey. My last name's Davis. I co-run a hair and beauty salon in Sidcup. But with that salon, in our title, we are also hair, beauty, well-being. So the well-being part is myself and my business partner just have another passion outside of hair and beauty, where we want to help people. And we run free support groups within the salon. Every so often, it's anything between 4 and 6 weeks. And we pick a different topic of conversation, including anxiety, relationships, grief, and we share our personal experience with that topic of conversation. And then at the end, we give self-help tools on how to better yourself surrounding that situation. It's a really chilled, relaxed group. It's not like an intense meeting where you have to stand up and say your name, hi, this is my problem. It's just really relaxed, and people can either come along just to listen to us talk, or if they feel like offloading at the end of it, then they can as well. So yeah, so hairdressing is not just my main career. I'm really passionate about well-being too, and mental health. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I know we had a little bit of a laugh and a joke before we went live about how hairdressers are kind of therapists, because
Yeah.
the things that you guys must hear along your day, when people just I suppose they just feel safe and they're ready to kind of let go, right? Let their guard down.
Yeah, that's it. I feel people sometimes find it safe to offload to, in effect, a stranger if I've just met people for the first time, or even if it's someone I'm building a relationship with and I've done their hair many times. I mean, they know everything pretty much about my personal life. And you do really build a great relationship in that space of time that you're with someone. And I feel maybe that is why people feel safe, because it's a chance for them to be away from family and normal life. And sometimes you just want to hear the advice of an outsider, or sometimes you just want to offload to someone who's not in that scenario.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You said something really interesting, is that they know your story, and I'm really interested because um, of the effects of people knowing our journey and how it
Yeah.
can open up bonds of trust. But can you? I know when we've talked, you talked about a spiritual experience that you had in 2016. As comfortable as you feel, can you let people know what that was all about?
Yeah, definitely. So during this time, I experienced grief for the first time. I had lost my nan and granddad, who were like second parents to me growing up, so really, really close bond with them. And it was really traumatic how my granddad passed away, the run up to him passing. 18 months after that, my nan then passed away too. And I think a month before my nan passed away, I come out of my first long-term relationship. So for me, it was a series of 3 things that were really significant that I'd never experienced before, that prompted me to ask the question why. And I just felt like, I always felt like there was more purpose to it. I didn't feel that I was going through it for just an ordinary reason. I always felt that there was something more that I could take from it, and I just couldn't let that go. So, you know, there was a lot of days where, why has this happened? Why? Because before that, everything in my life was just going pretty swimmingly. I just thought that if my nan and granddad were going to pass away, it would just be, you know, in old age, in this, well, there was old, but, you know, just naturally in their sleep. I never thought anything shocking would happen. And as I say, I was in a long-term relationship that I thought was going really well. And yeah, it just felt like overnight everything just crumbled around me. And after asking the question why, I had an awakening. And it was just me realizing that actually, yeah, there was going to be a purpose to this. And I just run with that basically, and I surrendered to what I was going through. And I said to the universe, help me, get me out of feeling this way, and I will surrender to all your guidance, and please guide me to the reasons why this is happening. And slowly I then just went on a journey of self-discovery, which helped me learn a lot about myself. I had new realizations about life, my behavior. It's almost like you get a flash of everything that's happened in the past up to this point, and you're analyzing, you know, is that really healthy, and why am I this way? And that's how I then embarked on a journey of what they call healing. But obviously my journey's been taught through spirituality, so I've learned a lot through the spiritual lessons that were presented to me, and that's how I've learned all about healing and inner work, and how we all carry around some unconscious emotional trauma, and we all are the way we are because of different things we've experienced in our life. So yes, through that time and asking the question why, and then having an awakening, it's now brought me to this point, yeah, all those years later.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm really interested to know, I kind of want to put you back into that place where you were saying why, you know, when you were full of sadness and remorse and grief and loss. When you were saying why, what were you hearing back? Like, what was because why is a question. So what were you hearing back when you said that the universe was like, hey?
So initially I wasn't hearing anything back. Initially I was saying why, and I just couldn't drop it, and I wasn't hearing anything. I obviously had so much hurt, and you know, if anyone's experienced grief that's watching this, it's horrible. You know, it's such a you know, you go through all the different motions of it. So I think for a while I couldn't actually feel why, and it was once those feelings started to ease off a little bit, I think that helped to then gain that understanding. So yeah, initially I wasn't hearing anything back. It was over a matter of time, I just remember getting a boom. That's all I can describe it. It was, oh, I realise now, oh, that there's something more to take from this. But it did take me a little while. It wasn't overnight. I think when you're in the midst of anything like that, the pain can feel too strong. I think almost it has to ease off a little bit for the realizations to come in. Yeah.
It's funny. I've lost both my parents, and I know that I never got to actually know my grandparents because we grew up in Canada, and my most of my family was here. But I know losing my mom and dad at different times, it was maybe about 9 years apart. Very different experiences. You know, losing my mom, I was not in a good place anyway, and it sent me into this real dark spiral of alcohol use and isolation, and getting into a lot of trouble with my drinking, I had no tools to cope with loss, because I think that's the thing. And I, like you too, I remember my first bereavement actually wasn't, sorry, it isn't like you, but with regards to your breakup, my first bereavement, and people can think about bereavements as being as someone who's passed, but really for me, it was a breakup because no one close to me had died. It was when I was 28 years old and I broke up with somebody and my heart was shattered.
Yeah.
And again, I just, all I could do was cry and say, I'm never going to meet anybody. I'm always going to be alone. I'm a failure. I was blaming me as like for the loss of this, which, I mean, hey, I do take responsibility of not being a good boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
But these feelings of, it was almost, I couldn't see outside of me. It was, the world was all about me, and it was, and again saying I had no tools to be able to deal with that breakup. And then when my mom passed away, again, no tools to deal with the breakup. And I say that no positive tools, because my tools at the time was to immerse myself in isolation and alcohol use. So, I suppose their tools are just not very good tools, and they end up with some pretty severe consequences.
Oh, I can relate. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No one teaches us how to, that. And I think the further we get away from our old traditional values and how we've evolved as a species, where death was just part of life, I know in a lot of cultures in Indonesia and a lot of other cultures that I'm just kind of going off of a documentary I just saw, but they celebrate the death, they celebrate the death, and they're like, you are going on to other places. And we've lost that disconnect with what life is. And we all would think now that I'm here for 82 point whatever years the average says, and I have to obtain this, I have to get married, I have to have kids, I have to have a mortgage, I have to have a successful job, I have to have a shiny car, I have to have a nice, all of these pressures that say, you've got to do all of this stuff. Rather than really just live life, So with your, I guess, your evolution through grief, of actually physically losing someone of this earth, what are the things that you've learned, and what are I suppose the things that you can pass on to others who are going through a similar thing now that, this was in 2016, it was 6 years ago. Is my math right?
To be honest, it was 2015.
Yeah.
So,
50.
Yeah. So about, it'll be 8 years this year since the awakening.
So it's still not that far away to lose somebody. I know everyone says we have stages of grief, but like, how do you feel about your grandparents now? How's that journey from losing them and saying why to where you are now?
Yeah, to be honest, I think with grief, I don't think you ever get over losing someone. I think you just learn how to live with it. And I suppose the thing that gave me the most comfort after they passed away is, I'm quite fortunate that I was already embarking on a bit of a spiritual path around that time. So the thing that gave me so much comfort was, okay, so these amazing people lived in, this human life, and now they passed over. What magic could they create for me in the spirit world? Because, I've always believed in that. So for me, I felt, well, those will be the two people that will be guiding me now. And I thought, they can see everything. So I just have to trust them now with the signs and the messages and things like that. And that gave me so much comfort, because I thought, although I can't see them in physical form, I've had no doubt that they're the ones that have been carrying me along this journey of healing and self-discovery. And there's no doubt in my mind about that. So that's one of the things that gave me comfort, is that although we lose people in a physical sense and you can't see them, they are very much around. Trust me, they're around a lot. And for them, them being passed over and them not being able to see you in physical form is just as hard for them as it is for us. So that gives me a lot of comfort. And also just move through the motions with what comes up. I feel good today and I can speak about it, but I've had conversations with clients before and we spoke about grief and losing people, and you just get a wave of emotion come over you, and you reminisce about times that you've had, and you can still get upset. It doesn't matter how much time's passed. because you miss people in the physical form, you know, you want to see them. So I believe it helps to just roll with the motions and don't give yourself any pressures of you must feel a certain way by a certain time or anything like that. I think that puts a lot of pressure on people to heal, because you're not really healing if you're saying, well, by this point I should be feeling this way, or by this point I should be acting this way. You know, I think that puts a lot of pressure on people to heal, not even just with grief, with a lot of other things, with relationship breakups as well. You know, for me, when I come out of my first long-term one, it wasn't necessarily the person that I needed the time to get over. It was because of everything that was brought up for me when that relationship ended. It was feelings of abandonment, probably trauma from, you know, childhood wounds, you know, things like that in a child. It brought up a lot of things, and I've probably had needed a lot of time to myself, to be honest, to move through that. But because I had that awareness, I didn't put that pressure on myself. You know, I just thought the longer it goes, the better I'm going to feel, the more I'm going to learn about myself. And then it's a case of setting yourself up to be in the best possible position for when something new does come into your life, or, you know, setting yourself up to be in a position where emotionally you're going to be able to handle other things that get thrown at you in life, because you've dealt with that in a patient way. So yeah, I suppose that's the sort of advice I give in the support groups, is just don't put pressure on yourself, and be kind to you, give yourself the space to heal. You know, don't feel that you've got to be a certain way by a certain time. Yeah.
No, I think you've nailed it. I think it's our own personal journey with grief, loss, transition. You made some great points about emotions too, and I think that sometimes that we again feel that, you know, it could be years after we lose somebody, or we lose someone has transitioned, or someone has passed on. I'm like you. I don't think we ever lose them, but but we are designed to cry. We are designed to feel these emotions, and I think bottling them up, saying, "Oh, that was so long ago," you know, a tear to me doesn't necessarily mean sadness.
No,
you know,
I completely agree with you.
I can well up just when I see someone being kind to somebody. You know, I like my eyeballs being active with the emotions and tears, and I think being able to just let the fun thought, or sad thought, or happy thought with someone who's no longer around to just flow through you. And I think I'm like you too on the idea that just it's time, you know, and there's no set thing of when things happen, but we evolve. It's not like we get over it. It's our relationship with their passing changes. And into the, you know, and then I was going to kind of roll on to when my father died, and that it was a completely different experience when my dad died, because I was in a connected state to the universe. You know, I'd gone through a 12-step recovery program, and I was helping other men do the same thing. And I know that my dad was afflicted with the same illness that I was afflicted with. And when he passed away, I just felt like he was like, "Oh, son, you know, you got this. I'm so proud of you." I just felt it. You know, and I constantly do feel my mother and my father, their presence is, and it sounds, some people might be listening to this going, "You guys are a bunch of like tree huggers."
I know.
You know, I'm not a religious person. I don't follow any dictates of any religion. I just feel that this universe is so vast, and to think of us this being it just doesn't make sense to me.
No,
you know,
sorry, I get really into this when I start getting into these conversations, like, oh, I just want to say loads of things.
Go, say, talk.
One thing I do want to say with the crying thing is that we're conditioned to believe that crying is just based on just sadness, but crying, what I've learned from spirituality, is it's a release. So I've done deep meditations before that has brought me to tears, but I see it as, oh, I'm just releasing whatever needs to be released, and it somehow is, you know, it's coming out through crying. So that's what I was thinking when you were saying that. And also yes, the universe being, you know, abundant, and there's a lot more out there than just what's in front of us. You know, like you said, people think, oh, tree hugging hippies and all things like that, but I think it's just about expanding your mind, really. I think it's about just being open and you know, realizing that there is more out there, there's more to life. And if I didn't have that belief after my nan and granddad passed away, I wouldn't be where I am now. But it's with that expansion that I thought there's a lot more to this. But I think if I had a bit more of a closed mindset, I don't know if I would have got through it in the way that I did. You know, when it first happened, yes, I did do the usual thing that everyone does. You turn to partying and you're going out a lot and you're drinking a lot, and you get to a point you're like, I can't, you know, keep doing it in this way. So now I handle things completely differently. But again, it's through learning everything I've learned through this spiritual lifestyle and expanding my mind, you know, that there's more to life and how to handle certain scenarios. You know, you can do it in a healthy way, but you can do it in a healthy way through healing, you know, through working on yourself and through having a level of self-awareness and acknowledgement and, you know, being accountable. All these lessons I've learned through spirituality, which is, yeah, now what I'm trying to teach.
It's beautiful. I love it. I love it. There's a couple other things I want to get into, but you know, it's how you describe a relationship with spirituality and with the universe. I think that is really important. And like for me, it just breaks it down to, I'm not the center of the universe. Yeah. I'm one of almost 8 billion people on this planet. Mm-hmm. And I've just come to terms with that we are all interconnected, and there's nobody who is born better than or less than anybody else. And that I don't really think about too much in up in the stars. I just think about what Russell Brand, and this was at a time when I didn't really understand what he was saying, because my relationship with him has changed too, as my relationship with everything changes, as my relationship with myself changes. But yeah. He said once that we're mundane. Mm-hmm. And, you know, everyone thinks that that's boring, but he said it comes from the word mandias, which means of this earth. And I was like, oh, I get it. We're of this earth, you know, so while I'm of this earth, which is part of the universe, we're all made of stardust and all that, then I don't really need to have to try to transcend to some spiritual level. I need to just help my fellow man. Yeah. And it just simplified it. That's my spirituality, is I'm part of the globe, and we're all humans trying to have, you know, we're all spirits trying to have a human experience. Let's just help each other while we're here. Yeah. And it just makes it really simple. And I think you did mention the word science too, that you like to know the science of things. And I love that, listening to like guys like Brian Cox, who's like, you know, he talks about how much, like, there's enough energy in this room around me, enough hydrogen that if used correctly could power all of England. And you're like, wow, come on. I'm not that powerful, you know, and but the universe is, and it's kind of cool.
Have you read The Secret? Did we speak about this before?
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know if we spoke about it, but I have read The Secret, yeah.
Yeah, so in The Secret, there's, for anyone who's watching this not familiar, all about the law of attraction, isn't it, and all things like that. But I liked that book when I read it, because they actually do have chapters in that to state more of the science behind it. And when you're reading it like that, you think there is a lot of truth in all of this stuff. From a scientific perspective as well. Joe Dispenza, follow him as well. I love all his work. But again, he speaks about it in a very scientific way, which then makes it seem a bit more substantial to be able to believe in it, because then it's both sides. So that's why I'm convinced there's so much truth in, you know, everything that we're speaking about.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is just to be curious about it. And you mentioned the word willing, just willing to believe that I'm not the center of the universe. The world doesn't evolve around me. I'm just part of something, and I can show up to my best of my ability just to be a positive role in humanity, rather than where I was for 45 years of my life thinking, what can I get from you? What am I going to get from this situation, rather than what am I going to give to this situation? Very simple. You know, the funny thing is, it's not new concepts. These concepts have been around for millennia, I think it's just the protocols in which people teach these concepts change, and however they suit you, then go for it. But okay, so now I want to go into your growth. So you asked why, you asked why, you asked why.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you got the thud and you were like,
Mhm.
oh, this is, there's some purpose here.
Yeah.
And that when did that happen? And then what's been that journey from then to where you are today?
So I started, I think I was reading The Secret around this time. So I've had a combination of everything. So it's hard for me to pinpoint everything in order. I was reading The Secret around this time. So my mindset was becoming more positive with what I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
I also had started practicing meditation. So with practicing meditation, my intuition was being developed, it was getting stronger. And again, that then led me to be able to trust the signs. And I started to receive angel numbers. Again, this is a little bit out there for people that are not too into this, but 1111, if anyone's familiar, numbers started to come to me. And when I look up the meaning of the numbers, almost every single time that meaning was bang on to what I was going through and at that time. And that gave me more faith to trust this path. And I just learned so many things about myself through my level of awareness. But it was a contribution with all these things I was learning. The meditation was opening me up to a stronger connection with the universe. It was helping me develop a stronger intuition to trust the signs. I was then getting more signs. And this is how I then just threw myself into this lifestyle of spirituality and healing. And the journey now where it's led me. So I have a book written that is yet to go to edit stage. And it is me talking about my personal experience from that. And the reason I'm sharing my personal experience, you know, no one knows really who I am other than people that know me, and the more I start putting myself out there. But the reason I'm doing it is because what I found with the support groups is listening to somebody else's story, no matter how big or small, if you can relate your own story to something else, it gives you that little bit of faith. And I feel by me sharing it, what I want to show people is this is where I was at and this is where I now am. And if you had said to me back in 2015, this experience is gifted to you because you're going to go off, you're going to write a book, you're going to help other people, you're going to podcast, you're going to do a live, I would have said, no, absolutely not. I just, no, could never imagine that. But I'm here now and I got through it and I survived. And again, the reason I want to share these experiences is because I believe we're conditioned to believe that you have to go through really serious trauma in life for your story to matter. And I feel like by sharing my story, I'm showing, no, you don't actually. You can just experience loss, but that can come in the form of a relationship, a job, grief. It can come in many aspects, and you can still have really deep emotional, you know, wounds come up from that. You don't have to go through anything stereotypical, you know, really horrendous to need some aspects of healing in your life. And I suppose by sharing my story, I'm teaching people also the world of spirituality, but by showing people, as I say, this is what I went through, this is where I'm at, and I've got to this place through everything that I've learned through this journey. And I suppose for me, it's showing that no matter how difficult that time is, you can reach a point of actually feeling gratitude for it, because I'm so grateful for that. It sounds mad because obviously no one wants to lose people in life, but the way that it happened for me, I needed a push to get out of my own way. And I honestly believe that had everything not happened in the way that it did, I don't know if I would have fully embraced this journey, but I needed a big push to get me to this point. And as I say, I have so much gratitude for that period of my life now. And it's through the gratitude, it's through having faith that has got me out of it. And this is now, you know, what I want to teach. Gratitude, faith, compassion, forgiveness, kindness, all these unconditional love, to be honest, has been my true lesson through this journey. Unconditionally loving myself for everything I am, the universe. And I feel when we emit that frequency of unconditional love, we help others heal in that process as well. So sometimes it does sound very stereotypically spiritual, you know, very hippified, peace and love, but ultimately the world would be a kinder place if everyone learned these things, you know. I do really believe that. I do believe that we would all, if everyone healed something about themselves, it would have a positive knock-on effect on everything and everyone in life. So yeah, again, that's where I'm at now. I can talk about it, I cannot get upset, and I can talk about the lessons that have come from it. And yeah, I suppose if anyone's listening that is going through a difficult period, if I can get through it, anyone can. And I really do believe that.
I've got so much I could unpack from that. Where we're at, but like we've
Sorry,
got 15. No,
yeah.
we got. You know, the funny thing is, like, we've got 15 minutes left, and I've got so much. We could probably do this talk for another hour.
Yeah.
I want, you know, the thing that you talk about too is that it doesn't matter what has happened to you. It is yours. It's your pain. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about growing up in a violent household, moving countries and feeling disconnected and isolated at high school, breaking up with someone at 28, going to, you know, spirals of disconnection and moving countries and losing friends and hospitals, prisons, detoxes, seeing people recover and me not recover and feeling really bad, and going that really I could just talk about what it was like to break up with someone at 28, and that being the most visceral pain that I could feel. Not going to prison, you know, not waking up in hospitals with acute pancreatitis, which hurt. But actually that was the time when I think about it, 28 years old. So the stuff that happened that after 28 is still trauma. It's still pain. Stuff that happened before that. But the one that I remember the most is the breakup. And if people were to say, oh, why are you talking about a breakup? That's not that bad. Why is it that a guy who's been to prison remembers a breaking up with a girl more painfully than going to jail? And that's why I think that nobody can say, hey, that isn't, you don't know, you know, that isn't that bad, because they don't know what you can't feel someone else's trauma.
No, comparisons is something that I've learned, and that is again a program. We're programmed to compare. I don't know where that comes from or why, but that's what we all do. And that comes from what they call, you know, the ego, the mind. You know, you'll look at someone and go, oh, well, my life's not like that, so that means I'm unhappy. That's such a subconscious program that we all are guilty of doing, and social media can be really damaging for that. But when you take a comparison out of it and you just honor your experience and, like you said, your pain, then again, that's very healing, because you're just taking into your own life, you know, you're taking all of yourself into consideration. And comparison, sorry, that's really dangerous, but that's something we all are conditioned to do. So again, without putting all the work in that I had before, I wouldn't have learned about that. But I could have a long list of everything I've learned about that. It comes from a conditioned and a programmed place, which isn't healthy and it doesn't help people.
I think comparison is something that, for me, when I think about it logically, it's a fairly new thing that has been programmed in us by the materialistic, capitalistic systems and that we live in, which is like, I have to obtain certain things to be elevated in society. I have to have a nicer car than you. I have to have a bigger satellite dish. You know, all of the things that were, you know, to compare ourselves and elevate ourselves in a class society. Whereas, like, if we didn't have a class society, we wouldn't be comparing ourselves as much. We could. And I don't even think it's about learning, Kelsey. I think it's about remembering things that we've forgotten. You know, through evolution, we've forgotten about our connection to the stars. It's funny, I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he talked about what happened in Los Angeles a few years ago. There was because of the light pollution, you can't see many of the stars in the center of Los Angeles, and there was a blackout. And of course, that part of the world, if there's no light pollution, you're going to see a lot of stars. And he said that the 911, 999 over here, but 911 over there,
Mm.
calls were going off the chart because people were phoning thinking that the stars were colliding with the earth.
Oh,
And,
really?
people hadn't seen stars. Oh,
Yeah.
so you think little dum-dums, California dum-dums, but I only from the goodness of my heart. But this is the disconnect we have with the universe, is that like people just don't see the stars anymore. And
Yeah.
I think that can we just forget all of the BS and all of the programming of capitalism and materialism to remember that we are just stardust and we are part of the universe.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that, I think that's happening. And I think it's definitely, I don't think it
Totally
is
sure.
happening. It's
Yeah.
happening with people like you and the circles that you're holding for people, which I think is absolutely beautiful and amazing. And it's like, and for me, the thing that starts it is your vulnerability.
Oh,
You
thank
know,
you. Appreciate that.
your vulnerability is creating a tribe, a gathering of I don't know if it's just women that you work with, but of people around you who go, oh, I trust her because she's been vulnerable with me. I'm going to express my truths and my fears. And
Hmm.
then that's when healing happens from
Yeah.
within, right?
Yeah.
So, thank you for being that light of vulnerability. And I do wish that if more people were in spaces that they felt safe to
Mhm.
express their vulnerability, that's when healing starts.
Yes, definitely. And just to add with that point, I have actually had a few men that have reached out to me. We have had men in the group, I think a couple of times, but men are a bit more difficult to ask for help and less willing to be vulnerable because again a conditioned belief is to be vulnerable means you're weak, and I don't believe that at all. I actually find vulnerability a really amazing thing, and I see it as a strength.
Mm.
But that's really sad to me that there's a lot of men that feel almost that they can hold themselves back and they're a bit afraid to turn to this sort of path because again you don't need to be spiritual for these lessons to work for you. I just so happen to learn this through that journey, but you don't have to be spiritual to know that learning about forgiveness is going to help, compassion, non-judgment, all these things. And yeah, I do find that really sad with the men's mental health because that's a subject that's really close to home to myself and my family. So that's another side of the well-being that I feel passionate about. Is that yeah, I think men. I mean, you going through that relationship that broke up when you was 28. You said you wasn't great in that relationship. The thing for you was probably coming out of that and feeling a lot of guilt, probably judging yourself a lot, being hard on yourself. I think men, again, they're conditioned to be that strong person and take on the role as you've got to make sure everything's all right. And then if you do something where it's gone wrong, that's how you beat yourself down about it. So that's what happens to a lot of men when they come out of relationships where maybe they were at fault. It's the judgment, it's the guilt. But being too hard on yourself is the thing that's going to again stop people from healing. So what I learned through this is you can't change anything that's happened in the past. All you can do is learn from it and do better next time, and that's all you can do. But I think that's why a lot of men carry around a lot of emotional burden, and I think also why men don't reach out or feel safe enough to express their vulnerability.
Oh, I mean that's the core of what we do with Tough Through Tender
Yeah.
is and it's not hard to see that it isn't just we, although we're talking about men, this does happen to women as well, in that I was on a bus a couple of years ago when I was living in Bromley, and I was on a bus from Bromley to Crystal Palace, and there was a gentleman and his, I think, probably 8-year-old son got on the bus and sat behind me, and the father was going, and this was 2 years ago or just before lockdown. Son, I don't want to ever see you crying on the pitch again. I never want to see you cry on the pitch. We don't cry. And I think he said men, but I don't want to paraphrase it that much. But there's no crying in football, basically.
Yeah.
And you just go, okay, so it's what he said is not new. It's what I heard. It's what 100% of my men friends have heard, is we just don't cry.
Yeah.
Now I know that through my growth is that an 8-year-old has an enlarged amygdala, our emotional center in the brain. And they're designed to cry because they don't have the language to say, hey, I'm in pain. So the tears and the crying come out there. It's enlarged for survival mode. So you're telling an 8-year-old that crying is wrong,
Yeah.
it's bad, you should
Mhm.
feel ashamed of it. That 8-year-old grows into a 16-year-old, grows into a 28-year-old man, grows into a 45-year-old man who's dying of alcoholism,
Yeah.
and still has no capacity to say, help me, to somebody, I'm in pain.
Yeah.
Those ideals almost killed me.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, is we got, oh, okay. And this is what I want to try to get through to people, is that, hey, we need safe spaces. We need spaces to express our emotions, because
Yeah.
bottling them in, it is proven, comes out in substance use, in violence, in isolation, in other negative behavioral patterns, where we need to be able to process emotions. That's what they're there for, not to be bottled up and to feel shame over.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, just by creating spaces like you do, where people can say, hey, do you know what, I'm just going to come and listen and be willing and be open, just to say, you know what, today's not a good day for me.
Yeah.
I'm scared. And even in that, you're helping somebody with their own journey to healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, the more we work on ourselves and the more we are vulnerable and, like you said, create these spaces, it's all healing for healing, isn't it? Yeah.
And I know we're running out of time, but I'm very
Yeah.
interested to know what those spaces look like for you. You say that there's a group of you that what do you do? Like, how do your sessions start? And you say that the people can come in and watch. So can you describe what one of your sessions would look like and what you would talk about?
Yeah, so it's in the salon, or studio, whichever to refer to. It's myself and my business partner, who's also my friend. We open it. We aren't really getting it out there as much at the moment. We need to do a little bit more networking, I think, locally, to make ourselves known of what we're doing. But we've had anything range from one person to 6 people. And the way we look at it is, if there was only one person that showed up, then that could be one person that still needed the help. So it's very relaxed. They come to the shop, studio, salon, and they sit in front of us, myself and my business partner friend. We start off by talking about the topic of conversation. We tell them about ourselves, and we then go into our personal stories. So similar really to what you and I are doing now, and anyone's welcome. And as I say, we have had people that have literally just come along and sat there and they've just wanted to listen and take on board a few things. Or there's been incidences where we did one on grief, and this lady, bless her, she was an elderly lady, and I think she probably gets quite lonely, and she just offloaded about losing her husband, and she got a bit emotional, but everyone in that room just sort of gathered around her and made sure she was okay. And she couldn't thank us enough at the end. She said, wow, I've not really spoke too much about that to anyone, and I really feel a lot better for getting that off my chest. So I think it is just sometimes people need to offload and just get that little thing out, because again, otherwise you're just carrying that around for ages. But as I said, the last one we did was on anxiety, and we did only have one person come. But the way we looked at it was, this is one-on-one help, and this is eventually what I want to be doing, and my business partner also wants to be doing. So she was really grateful, actually. She said she felt if there was more people there, then she might not have felt safe to open up. So it's a case of just trusting the process, trust who turns up. And trust that if it's one person, it's still one person that's been helped. So, it's really relaxed.
I think the anxiety one is key, because there are people who probably walk by your shop and want to go in. But they're still there, so that one person that came in is probably just that little bit of courage, just to step forward. But I think if more and more people find, a water drop begins with one drop of water.
Yeah.
You know, your success is not measured against how many people follow you on Instagram. It's measured on the impact on people's
Yeah.
lives. You know, so
That's
keep
really
that in, you know, that's the one thing that me and Melissa, we keep in our mind. We don't need to be spending our energy trying to get followers. We need to be spending our energy on the spaces that we hold for the people who are there,
yeah.
because it's like, you know, in another movie analogy, if you build it, they will come, you know, from Field of Dreams. And if you create the spaces, people will come.
Yeah.
So Kelsey, please keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
We've run out of time.
Yeah.
Just 45 minutes just flies by, and I know you've got to get
Yeah.
to the day job. So thanks for joining us. How can people get in touch with you?
So, Studio 11 Hair, Beauty and Wellbeing is the name of our salon. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. My personal Instagram is Love from Kelsey with 3 Y's on the end. And yeah, I suppose people can drop me a DM if they're interested and want to come along. My business partner actually has a slip disc at the moment. She's
Oh
in a lot of
no.
pain. So I don't know when we can start up our next group again. But if anything I've touched on has been relatable to anyone and they'd like a little bit more of an insight, then I always say to people, my DMs are open. I've got a podcast where I say to people, you know, if anything I'm talking about is relating, feel free to drop me a DM. It's all strictly confidential. This is free support that we're offering, by the way. These evenings don't cost anything. It's free support. It's out of our time. And with the podcast I'm doing and things like that, I'm offering, you know, if you're going through something and you'd like to talk to someone and you can't get the help, please drop me a DM because I'm happy to help. And as I say, it is strictly confidential. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's beautiful. If you want to just send me anything that you want, or on the What's On at Elephant and Castle Facebook, just put anything in the comments that you want people to contact you with. Also, I was thinking as you're saying that we do have an online event coming up that Melissa is going to lead, and I think that out of here, I'll give you the details for that, because I think maybe you and your business partner might really enjoy that. It's called This Human Thing series. It's going to be really cool. So maybe maybe you can join us in that. And Kelsey, thank you so much for your time. I know you're really busy. Thanks for starting this. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll put Kelsey's links in the feed, and don't forget to join me on Thursday at 11 a.m. for another Tough Through Tender gathering. We'll see you all later. Thanks a lot. Bye.